I was about to send y'all a text.
Thank you so much. So hi everyone. When most people hear the word scouting, there are probably a few things that immediately come to mind: camping, hiking, Pinewood Derby, merit badges, maybe somebody trying to start a campfire and discovering that it's a lot harder than it seems. And yes, all of those things are a part of scouting, but scouting is much bigger than camping. At its heart, scouting is about giving young people opportunities to learn by doing. It's about building confidence, developing leadership skills, serving your community, discovering new interests, making friends, and sometimes accomplishing something you weren't sure you could do. And one of the most important things I want to talk about today is that those opportunities aren't supposed to be limited to one particular kind of person. Scouting is for everyone. That includes young people with physical disabilities, intellectual and developmental disabilities, learning disabilities, autism, ADHD, sensory disabilities, and many other support needs. So today I want to talk a little bit about what scouting is, what scouts actually do, and how someone can join, but especially about something called able scouting and how scouting can be adapted so that young people with different abilities can participate, grow, and belong. So, what is scouting? Scouting America is a youth development organization that's been serving young people in the United States since 1910. There are several different programs depending on someone's age and interests. Cub Scouts is primarily for elementary school-aged youth from kindergarten through 5th grade. Cub Scouts do things like camping, hiking, crafts, games, science experiments, community service, the Pinewood Derby, outdoor activities, and lots of other hands-on adventures. Families are also very involved in Cub Scouting, especially with the younger Scouts. Then there's Scouts PSA, generally for youth ages 11 through 17. This is where Scouts have even more opportunities to develop independence and leadership. They camp, hike, cook, learn first aid, practice outdoor skills, and serve their communities and earn merit badges. And merit badges cover an enormous range of interests. There are the ones people traditionally associate with scouting, things like camping, first aid, swimming, and wilderness survival. But there are also merit badges involving art, animation, game design, robotics, programming, photography, theater, music, entrepreneurship, engineering, veterinary medicine, and many more. So you don't have to be someone who loves camping every weekend to find something that you enjoy in scouting. There are also older youth programs, such as Venturing, Sea Scouts, and Exploring, which provide additional opportunities based around adventure, leadership, careers, and particular interests. But regardless of the program, the idea is similar. A scout is given opportunities to try things. Sometimes they'll succeed, sometimes they'll struggle, sometimes they'll discover something they're really good at that they never would have tried otherwise. And through that process, they grow. One of the biggest misconceptions about scouting is that we're primarily teaching outdoor skills. We certainly do teach those skills, but they're really the vehicle for teaching something bigger. Imagine a group of scouts going camping. Someone has to decide what they're going to eat. Someone has to create a shopping list. They have a budget. They have to pack equipment. They have to figure out where they're sleeping. They have to cook. They have to clean. And when something inevitably doesn't go according to plan, they have to figure out what to do next. Without necessarily realizing it, they're practicing planning, communication, teamwork, problem solving, responsibility, and leadership. The same thing happens when scouts organize a service project, teach a younger scout how to tie a knot, lead a meeting, earn a merit badge, or work toward a rank. The goal isn't simply to earn a badge. The badge represents the experience they had along the way. And that's an important distinction when we start talking about scouts with disabilities. Scouting America's approach begins with a very simple idea. Young people with disabilities want the same thing other young people want: to participate fully and to be respected as members of their group. Scouting America specifically states that young people with disabilities are welcome in scouting, and that activities can be adapted and support provided based on a scout's needs. That's where able scouting comes in. When we talk about able scouting, we're talking about making the scouting experience accessible to scouts with special needs and disabilities. That does not mean creating a completely separate version of scouting. In fact, whenever possible, the goal is inclusion. A scout with a disability should have opportunities to camp with their fellow scouts, participate in activities, earn advancement, hold leadership positions, attend events, and be part of the unit. They are a scout. And the disability may affect how we deliver the program, but it doesn't change their membership in the scouting community. And I think that's an incredibly important distinction. Sometimes people hear the word fair and think it means everyone has to be treated exactly the same. But inclusion isn't necessarily about doing everything exactly the same way. It's about making sure everyone has a meaningful opportunity to participate. Think about hiking. Suppose a troop is going on a hike and one scout uses a wheelchair. The purpose of that activity might be to explore nature, navigate a trail, practice outdoor skills, work together, and experience an adventure. Oh my goodness, I lost my place. The answer shouldn't automatically be, well, you can't walk the trail, so you can't participate. Instead, we ask, what is the goal of this activity, and how can we help the scout participate in that goal? Maybe that means choosing an accessible trail. The equipment needs to be adapted. Maybe the route changes. Maybe the scout participates in a different way. The important question changes from, can the scout do this, to how can the scout do this? And sometimes the answer may generally be an activity can't be safely adapted. Safety still matters, but the first response should be curiosity and problem solving, not exclusion. The same philosophy applies to advancement. Scouting America allows flexibility for scouts with disabilities through accommodations and, when appropriate under its advancement policies, modifications or alternative requirements. An accommodation changes how a scout completes something without necessarily changing what they're being asked to accomplish. For example, imagine a scout who has difficulty reading written instructions. Maybe the instructions are read aloud. A scout who has difficulty communicating verbally might demonstrate knowledge another way. A scout with a mobility disability may need adaptive equipment or a different environment to demonstrate a skill. That's crazy. The objective is not to make scouting meaningless or simply hand someone an award. The objective is to remove a barrier that has nothing to do with what we're actually trying to teach. And in situations where accommodations aren't enough, scouting has formal procedures that can allow certain requirements to be modified. There are also procedures for scouts with qualifying disabilities to use alternative merit badges toward the Eagle Scout rank when a required merit badge cannot be completed because of the disability. That means we're still challenging scouts. We're still helping them grow. We're just recognizing that the appropriate challenge may look different from one scout to another. There's another part of disability inclusion in scouting that many families don't know about. Scouting normally has age limits. For example, Scouts BSA youth generally complete advancement before turning 18. However, Scouting America has a process called registration beyond the age of eligibility for individuals with qualifying permanent and severe disabilities. When approved, this can allow an individual to remain registered as a youth participant beyond the normal age limit. And importantly, this isn't simply an extra year or two. For someone who qualifies, the approval can provide unlimited time to participate in the scouting program as long as they remain properly registered. There is a formal process involved, including documentation and approval through the local council, so it isn't automatic for every scout who has a disability. But for the individuals who qualify, it can be incredibly important. Because development doesn't change according to one universal timeline. Something one scout learns at 13 might take another scout until 16, 20, or beyond. That doesn't make the accomplishment any less meaningful. Able scouting can look different depending on the individual. One scout may need very little accommodation. Another may need significant support. For a scout with autism, leaders might provide a schedule ahead of time so that the scout knows what to expect before a meeting or a campout. A A scout with sensory sensitivities might need access to a quieter area during a loud activity. A scout with an intellectual disability might need an additional repetition or more time to learn a skill. A scout who is deaf or hard of hearing might communicate through an interpreter, written instructions, visual demonstrations, or other methods. A scout who is blind or has low vision might rely more heavily on tactile instruction or verbal descriptions. A scout with limited mobility might need an accessible campsite, modified equipment, or a different way of participating in an activity. There isn't one universal disability accommodation, because there isn't one universal experience of a disability. The best resource is often the scout and their family. Instead of assuming what someone can or cannot do, we can ask, what helps a scout succeed? What situations are difficult? What accommodations at work, at school, or at home? What should we know before going camping? Those conversations can make an enormous difference. There's also something that I think every leader, and really every person, should remember. When a young person with a disability joins scouting, it can be easy for adults to focus entirely on the disability. What accommodations do they need? What can't they do? What behaviors should we watch for? What medical information do we need? Those questions may sometimes be necessary, but we can't allow those questions to become the scout's entire identity. Maybe that scout loves astronomy. Maybe they're hilarious. Maybe they can identify every species of bird they see. Maybe they're fascinated by computers. Maybe they're an incredible artist. Maybe they love cooking. Maybe they want to become an Eagle Scout. Maybe they don't care about the Eagle rank at all and mostly want to go camping with their friends. That's why inclusion is more than simply allowing someone to be in the room. They're invited to participate. They're given responsibilities. They're challenged. They're allowed to succeed. They're allowed to fail. And they're allowed to learn. And they're given the same dignity we want for every scout. And here's something else that's important. Inclusive scouting doesn't only benefit scouts with disabilities. It benefits the entire unit. When scouts learn that one of their friends communicates differently, they learn patience. When they modify a game so everyone can participate, they learn creative problem solving. When they help make a campsite accessible, they learn service. When a scout with a disability becomes a leader, the other scouts learn that leadership doesn't have one particular appearance. Those are lessons that are difficult to teach from a worksheet, but scouting gives young people opportunities to live those lessons. That's one reason Scouting America's own guidance says that while there are some units specifically serving scouts with disabilities, experience has shown that scouting usually works best when scouts with disabilities participate as members of regular units. Inclusion isn't an extra activity we add to scouting. Inclusion is part of living the values scouting is supposed to teach. Families and leaders also don't have to figure everything out on their own. Scouting America has resources specifically dedicated to supporting scouts with special needs and disabilities. One major resource is the Inclusion Toolbox, developed and maintained by Scouting America's National Special Needs and Disabilities Committee. It includes information for parents, unit leaders, camps, and volunteers on subjects ranging from autism and ADHD to advancement, camping, allergies, mobility, communication, and accessibility. There's also Abilities Digest, a publication dedicated to disability and special needs topics within Scouting. Scouting America provides training resources for leaders as well, covering disability awareness, ADHD, autism, advancement, camping considerations, program planning, and other topics. So if you're a parent sitting here thinking, my child would love this, but I'm not sure whether Scouting can accommodate them, please don't assume the answer is no. Ask us. Let's have that conversation. We may need to learn, we may need to adapt something, we may need to work together to determine the best environment, but a disability by itself should not be a reason to assume that scouting isn't an option. So after hearing all of this, maybe you're wondering what joining actually looks like. The first step is simply finding a local scouting unit. You can visit bescout.org, enter your zip code, and see Cub Scout packs, Scouts BSA troops, and other programs in your area. You can contact the unit, ask questions, and usually visit a meeting before deciding whether it's the right fit. And I actually encourage families, especially families of a child with a disability, to talk with the unit leadership. Tell them about your scout. Not simply their diagnosis. Tell them what they enjoy. Tell them what they're good at. Tell them what they want to try. And then tell the leaders what support they need. Different units have different volunteers, meeting locations, activities, and resources. Finding the right unit can make a tremendous difference. And if you're unsure where to start, you can also contact your local scouting council. We can help connect families with units and resources. I want to leave you with one thought. When we talk about making scouting accessible, we're not talking about lowering our expectations for young people with disabilities. We're talking about making sure that they have the opportunity to discover what they're capable of, because that's what scouting is supposed to do for every young person. The scout who needs extra time to learn how to tie a knot deserves the feeling of finally getting it. The scout who uses a wheelchair deserves the excitement of an outdoor adventure. The scout with autism deserves the opportunity to lead. The scout with an intellectual disability deserves to be challenged and recognized for their accomplishments. The scout who communicates differently deserves to have their voice heard. And every scout deserves friends who see them as a member of the team. That's able scouting. It's not about pretending disabilities don't exist. It's about recognizing the individual, understanding the barriers they face, and working together so those barriers don't automatically become closed doors. But sometimes all it takes is one adult willing to ask, how can we make this work? And suddenly, an experience that seemed impossible becomes possible. A camping trip becomes a first adventure, a merit badge becomes a new passion, a troop meeting becomes a group of friends, a leadership position becomes confidence, and scouting becomes a place where that young person knows, I belong here. That's ultimately what I hope everyone takes away today. Scouting is about adventure, it's about leadership, service, it's about learning skills and trying new things. But most importantly, it's about helping young people grow. And every young person deserves that opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this is exciting. It's exciting to know that anybody can absolutely be a scout. You mentioned that anyone wanting to look for a local pack could contact your scouting council. Where would they find the local scouting council?
So I don't remember the exact address off the top of my head, but I do know that our building is on South College. I can give kind of the right directions. If you're coming from Caliste, it'll be the first building on the right after you pass that grove of trees. And if you're coming from Vera, it'll be the last building on the left before you pass that grove of trees. And once you head in there, you'll enter into the scout shop. And behind that is all of our offices. Now, I myself, I am a district executive. I am a field worker. I am not usually in the office. But you can look up the council on the council website, the southlouisianacouncil.org, and it'll give you all of our contacts, mine, the other district executives, the scout executive, our office workers. It'll give you their contacts, and you can also research information from there.
That's the South Louisiana Council. .org.
Yes.
What? How many different? So, if someone is within the ages of kindergarten and fifth grade, they're differently abled, and they want to find a local Cub Scout pack. How would they go about finding one that's the right fit for them? And about how many different packs do y'all have in the area?
So the best way to start out is to go to bescout.org, enter your zip code, and see how many units are in your area. And from there, you can contact the unit leaders and be like, hey, I have a scout with a disability. Is it okay can we come by and talk to y'all and see how we can make this work? We'd love to join. I never remember off the top of my head, as I am over 4 different parishes. I'm over the Lafayette, Iberia, St. Martin, and St. Mary parishes. But I believe in the Cunanisha area, which is Lafayette and Iberia, we have about 15 packs total. We're currently working on getting more, so always keep that in mind.
Awesome. And when is the right time to sign up? Do y'all have a certain
That's
time
a
of the year?
wonderful question, because we are currently in recruitment season right now, where I am going into the schools and talking to the students directly and getting them excited for Cub Scouts. So right now is a great time to join, especially since the school year is starting up, so you have that full program. Because the Cub Scout program follows the school year. But generally you can join at any time of the year, but this is recruitment season. So you definitely want to join now if you can.
Awesome. And just real quick, tell our followers what's one thing that most scouting families have to say as far as what the overall experience is, just what they perceive is the main benefit of scouting, not just for the individual, but maybe even for the family as a whole.
That's a very interesting question because it's different for each person. I myself was a youth in the program, and I generally learned character development, leadership, and I gained confidence in myself. As a family, when you go camping, you'll generally be camping together, separate tents, but you'll still be camping together. So you get to experience those things as a family, and you get to grow together and go on these awesome adventures, but also learn more about each other and how we can each work to better each other character-wise, if that makes sense.
If someone joins and needs to take a break for any reason, is there a way that they can pause their membership, or how does that work?
I don't know anything off the top of my head, but that is definitely something that I can look into. We have a wonderful staff that I can always contact, and y'all can always contact as well for any of those specific questions. We do know that registration lasts 1 full year. Currently, it is $150 for youth and $85 for adults. I'm not sure if you're able to pause the registration, but you don't have to participate in every activity your unit does.
Awesome. So just to reiterate, there's definitely some flexibility. Registration is now, so anyone interested should contact to find out more.
Absolutely.
And tell us again about you said it's the scouting store on South College Road?
Yes. So when you go onto South College Road, if you're going from Calise, that is the one that I go to. I turn onto South College, I keep driving to where the lanes merge, and it's the first building on the right. It has Evangeline Area Council. We are no longer the Evangeline Area Council, we're the South Louisiana Council, but it still says Evangeline Area Council on the building. And you're going to go into Suite D, I believe. That is a scout shop. The one with the sign in the window that says the hours. And that is a scout shop, and you can walk in, you can see everything that we have. On one side of the room, we have our little museum. It's filled with pictures and memorabilia from, I think, 1930s, the 1930s and beyond. We actually had our first troop was in 1921, sponsored by the Rotary Club. So we have stuff all the way from then, from my memory. It's really cool if y'all want to stop by and see it.
Awesome. Do you happen to know the hours or?
So as of now, because school is starting, we're going into our normal hours. I believe it will be from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. We are actually currently hiring for a office staff for a shop worker to actually be there from 9 to 5, and hopefully on the weekends as well. But for now, 8 to 4, Monday through Friday.
You.
And